So about a year ago, I started looking for another project, a restoration project, something that I could tinker around with and also make a video. But at the same time, I was kind of searching for something with two wheels, motorcycle, maybe a motor scooter or something. Now I stopped riding back in 2012. I used to ride all the time, year round. I had an ST1100, ST1300. I've had many motorcycles in the past. CBR 1000Fs, I love those, Nighthawks, Magnas. But I stopped riding because I had worked way too many motorcycle accidents at the police department, and I had too many close calls, so I said no more. At the same time, never say never. This one particular house that I would pass going in and out of the neighborhood, every once in a while their garage was open and you could see a blue motorcycle parked in the back. I couldn't tell what it was, but I knew it was something a little bit smaller. Lo and behold, a month ago, a for sale sign pops out in front of the house. And I was like, this is my time to ask the guy finally, hey, look, are you interested in selling your motorcycle? They had posted a couple of for sale listings on our Facebook page for some items in their house for sale because they were moving. So I finally sent them a private message saying, hey, do you want to sell your motorcycle? About 3 days later, they responded back, yes, we do. We haven't ridden it in about a year, give or take a little, and it's got a electrical issue where it doesn't run. Are you mechanically inclined, to work on motorcycles? Yeah, I do. I love working on motorcycles. Electrical, I love doing electrical stuff. So he was out of town at the time, and he said, in a week, Saturday at around dinner time, come by the house and we'll talk about it. I was like, okay, sounds good. So that Saturday evening, I go by his house, and sure enough, there it is in his garage. And he's like, look, it has some sort of electrical issue. Nothing powers up. I put a new battery in it. My mechanic said to do this, do that. I also noticed that it didn't have a set of gauges on it. The gauges were missing. It needs a set of gauges. And he's like, well, when I bought it years ago, somebody had wrecked it before me, and they replaced the gauge cluster with a new updated digital readout. And I was like, whoa, okay. And he removed the microfiber cover or the towel and stuff. And sure enough, it's a really cool Vapor digital aftermarket set for motorcycles. And I was like, listen, how much do you want for this motorcycle? And he looks at me, he says, I think $500 is a fair price. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen a motorcycle. This is too good to be true. So I was like, tell you what, you take Venmo? Yep. Let me go and Venmo you right now. And I'd like to go ahead and get the bike back to the house, and I'll get the title a couple of days later. So I Venmo'd him, and he was like, should we go get a trailer from Home Depot? That way you can get it back to your house. And I was like, well, I'm all downhill from here. I'll just push it home. If I have to push a little ways on a flat, narrow, flat area, it's fine. But most of it's downhill. So I did. I pushed this thing all the way home.
How much did that cost? I want to ride it. How much did it cost? Is it a 600? What is it?
Why do we have a motorcycle here?
It's not running? Yeah. Are we going to keep it?
Did you walk all the way up there?
Push it out. There's the one. Look at my, look at my truck.
in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this thing has sat for a long time. It's going to need the carburetors cleaned out. It's going to need the fuel system gone through. It's going to need a new battery. Probably going to need new tires, fork seals, and everything. It's going to need quite a bit of work to get this thing back on the road, and it didn't. It turned out to be the main power wire that goes to the starter solenoid. Over time, it had heated up, contract, and lost its connection and heated the connector up, and it melted a little bit. And all I did was re-crimp that connector back and plugged it back in, and it started powering everything back up. So let me show you my not restored 2000 SV650. So this is it. Now obviously I've washed it. I washed it about a week or so ago, and I've waxed it and stuff. But oh my gosh, it is, I mean, I really wanted to bring y'all a restoration video. I wanted to bring y'all a video where I was going through the carburetors on this thing. I wanted to bring y'all a video of, oh my gosh, let's get this $500 bike going. I never would have imagined it was literally just a connector and push start and of the button and going. Now, it's got some flaws. It's been down, I'm going to say probably twice. Now I'm pretty sure these scrapes right here are probably from a boot, but I could be wrong. It's got some scratches on the factory muffler. The brake handle was bent, curled around. There were some scratches on the master cylinder. These are not the original mirrors. These are aftermarket. The headlight, and it's still, I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but the headlight was pointed to the right a little bit. It was all this was completely off. And there's little brackets here and here, but it also, this is all one bracket that travels up to here. And the headlight mount system, all this is what mounts the headlight to the front of the bike, along with the directional signals and stuff. He told me that he had to put these directional signals on because the original ones were busted off. The headlight was hooked up backwards, so high beam was low beam was high beam. I had to fix that. The clutch lever was out of adjustment. I had to fix that. It doesn't have the bar ends, like the handlebars. Those are aftermarket, and they don't have the bar ends like the OEM one does. And I'm debating on whether to get those. Those are kind of expensive. The tank's got a couple of dents in it. This is from an area down here on the forks, right here. I stuck a washer in there so it doesn't come all the way over and hit the tank. And the radiator is slightly warped, just a little bit. And you could tell, I don't know if I can show this to you. You could tell where at one time the radiator hit the top of the cylinder. I also had to take the horn off and bend the horn back straight. So this has been removed. This has been cleaned up and stuff on the wire wheel. Now, luckily there's a lot of used parts for this bike online, and there's a radiator if I wanted to go that route for like $29 free shipping. There's nothing wrong with it right now. I think one of the biggest things that caused all this damage is this went down on the left hand side. I don't think it was moving. I think it was a stationary fall. That would explain why the gauges was busted. That explains why the radiator is pushed into the head, or pushed into the cylinder head. And this gear shifter lever was way out of whack. Now, if you look at it very closely, there's a bolt in there right now. It's sort of how the factory is, sort of not. But this was way, way, way bent over, and it was incorrectly adjusted. It was really hard to shift. Now, also, this kickstand is, that little metal piece is bent back just a little bit. But yeah, I think that's where the main spill is. At the same time, it's a $500 motorcycle. I mean, you just can't get past that. Now, I just got this seat yesterday. This is a used seat that I purchased off of a website that sells SV650 parts. This was the seat that was on there to begin with. This was the original one. They had a piece of black duct tape on here, and it had oxidized and had all that black goo here. That's why it looks shiny here. I tried everything I could think of to try to get that off, but this is really cracked. It's very stiff, so any bit of movement on the material cracks it. And there was 2 other places, but I put the electrical tape on until I got this replacement seat. It wasn't too expensive. It was like $35 with shipping and everything. And this one is in really good condition, except for a tiny, tiny flaw right there, but I don't really care about that. Garage door opener, and we'll just barely kind of sort of do that. Now the first thing you notice is on the aftermarket gauge cluster, I have no idiot lights, and I'm in first gear right now, so get into neutral. All right, let's just go this way instead. There we go. Much better. Much better. Okay. All right. Welcome to my 2000 SV650. Or welcome to my $500 motorcycle. Absolutely insane. I still can't believe it. So this is honestly the 10th retake. Everything has completely failed. Microphone, audio recorder, camera, this and that. So hopefully this time will work. I figure I'm gonna bring you along with the ride with me and talk about this bike. And so obviously the first thing I was talking about is the aftermarket instrument cluster. The original bike, original owner, who knows how many times it had been down, but I believe the time that he had laid it down on the left hand side is when he had broken the gauge cluster. I believe it was the tachometer that got broken, and back in the early 2000s, I guess parts weren't that relatively available for this thing, so the option was to install the Vapor, I think it's tech-trailed Vapor instrument cluster. And it's not a bad cluster, it's a great gauge cluster. The problem is, I have a tachometer, I have a speedometer, I have an odometer. Now I can put an added sensor to monitor my coolant temperature, but this one didn't have that. It just had a temperature overheating light, so it just shows my outside temperature. You can purchase this outer plastic ring with the lights on it separately as an add-on for 50 or 60 bucks plus shipping. And then you have an assortment of different light bulbs that you can choose for what idiot lights you want to install. The problem is the previous owner had installed turn signal indicators left and right. You can't see those at all. And he left these 2 lights blank. Now there's actual light bulbs behind these 2 caps, but they don't go to anything. And if you don't have the actual kit with all the lenses and stuff, then you can't add any additional idiot lights. So I'm going to sometime in the future purchase another surround and start over again. That way I can have a low oil pressure indicator light, and also I would really like a neutral light, and maybe even a low fuel sender light. That'd be nice. Now back to the gauge cluster. You can get them off of eBay. Every once in a while a decent gauge cluster will show up, but in the US it's I think it's $300 is what you'll pay. And then a lot of people have been having problems with their gauge clusters failing because it's 22 years old, 22-year-old technology failing with the electronic boards and surface mounts or whatever is inside of them. Now, there is a guy in Scotland or England, somewhere overseas, and he sells nice gauge clusters for the naked version of the SV650, and his price is 120 or 180 pounds. plus shipping, freight, international shipping. So not terribly bad, but that's an option. I might do that. I seriously might do that. But I have to still tell myself, this is a $500 motorcycle. What do you do? Now, my favorite bike of all time was my 96, 97 CBR 1000F. Beautiful black, silver, and yellow graphics. Oh, I had a 1990 CBR 1000. I had a 96 and a 97. Don't ask, but years and years ago, I used to have a 700 Nighthawk, and I had a couple of mid-90s CB750 Nighthawks. Love the Nighthawks, but man, that CBR 1000 was just amazing. It was geared real low. If you were on the highway doing 70 miles an hour, I want to say you were doing under 3,000 RPMs. Beautiful touring bike. Old school compared to bikes now these days. I stopped riding in 2012 because I had worked too many motorcycle accidents. I had worked some really bad accidents when I was at the police department, and I had a couple of close calls when I was riding my ST 1100. That was my last bike that I was riding all the time, year round, and I had too many close calls on it. But man, this 650, I'm so surprised with the power and the size of it. I mean, when you think of 500, 600 cc motorcycle, after riding on a 1,000, you're like, man, that's really small. I think the horsepower on this is 72 or 77 horsepower and a boatload of torque. This thing's got a ton of torque. And it's got the factory exhaust, so it's pretty super quiet. If I wanted to upgrade something, that would probably be the first thing I go for, is the aftermarket exhaust pipe. I gotta watch out, there's some gravel up here. But yeah, right here. Overall, man, this bike is something else. And for $500, I was hoping to give y'all a restoration video of me tearing this bike apart and rebuilding the carburetors and fork seals and electrical system and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I didn't have to do that. It's absolutely insane. I've worked on so many bikes in the past, and I've never. This is one of those deals of a lifetime for me. Never seen anything like this. And I hate to say it, I thought, and it is, riding a motorcycle is super dangerous. But it's just like flying a plane. Once you get your pilot's license, or once you start flying, or once you start riding a motorcycle, you'll always have that bug in you. You'll say you'll quit it, but it'll be always in you, and you always want to get back up, get back on a motorcycle and stuff. And I don't know, maybe this is my time to start riding again. But I have had an absolute blast with it. The biggest improvement I've done to this bike since I've got it is, you'll notice the mirrors are different than what were on here yesterday. The guy I bought it from had put the original mirrors back on, because that one time they got torn off when it was laid down. But they're super short. You can't see nothing out of them. And I hate that. I need to see visibility behind me. And these are the long stem aftermarket mirrors. They were very inexpensive. I think they were $23. And I can see all the way around me. I love this. I love being able to see behind me. I got a nice complete 360 view now. That's a huge improvement. One thing I couldn't show you in the last video was these brackets right here for the headlight. I don't know if y'all can see that, but these brackets were bent. I guess when it got laid down, the headlight got shifted or something, and it bent all that junk up front. So I took the headlight bucket off when I had first got it, bent these brackets back out. I had to tweak the right headlight bracket, and then everything. That's how now the headlight is centered. Before, it was really way off. Well, I had the blowtorch out to re-bend that bracket, plus also bend the front brake lever out, which I've never ever been able to successfully do. But this time it worked on this one. But I also had to bend the shifter lever out because the shifter lever was all bent and tweaked and everything. So yeah, other than that, man, this thing has been absolutely insane. I love this thing. This thing is pretty cool. It's a lot of fun to ride around. It's not too big and it's not too small. And it rides really, really, really nice, and it runs fantastic. Let's see, it's 59. Even today, it's not a bad day out. It was warmer yesterday. It was like 64 degrees yesterday. But we won't go there. That video didn't work out. But I do. I enjoy riding as long as the temperature is above 50 degrees out, or 40, 45. Unless and see, that's the thing. I sold all my riding gear. I used to have gloves. I used to have a nice riding jacket, pants, and everything. I used to have a rain suit year round. But now I've got to buy new gear, riding gear again, and that's fine. I don't mind doing that. Don't mind doing that at all. But I wanted to bring you all along on a ride with me. I don't know how this video is going to turn out. I hope it's going to be interesting. This is something that's been completely not planned, that's for sure. I didn't expect it to turn out this way. I expected to have a little scooter one day, something to just play around with, not another full-blown motorcycle outfit and start riding again. And hopefully this time, the 10th time, the video will work out for y'all. Look at that thing. Ah, that thing is so cool looking. Neat little motorcycle.